Good morning, everyone. How are you today? Friday morning, November 22nd. Grateful to be here. God is good. Thank you for joining me today for the rise of cremation, myths, trends, and choices. Yeah, cremation has really taken over. And let's look into why. A couple of different reasons. It didn't just happen overnight. It's been a 40-year process, and by the next 20, it really is going to be more than it is now. I'm going to share some statistics with you today, and we're going to take a deep look into cremation. Why is it rising? Why is it becoming the form of disposition of choice? If you have any questions, feel free. Please join in. If you're not live on the stream, leave it in the comments. You know I'm going to get back with you. That's the way we operate around here. We leave no question unanswered. But as you know, we always start off with a few videos, show you a few things going on around the world. And to keep this episode 11, that's amazing too. I remember the first time I did it not having a clue what I was doing, and it's kind of growing and learning as I go. Kind of like it. A lot of people see me and say, Mr. Fisher, ask him and comment about what went on. And I'm grateful to be able to provide you some information that people are seeing and helping, clarifying some things, and know that we're always here to help 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Just a little more background history. We've been here as of November 1, 2004, 20 years, on this same corner, honoring the tradition of Mr. Joel B. Franklin. I'm grateful for what he started and founded. I came in, added my twist, some technology, and for 20 years, I thank my community of Southeast Virginia, Newport News, Hampton, York County, Gloucester, Williamsburg, Norfolk, Portsmouth. Every family that we've served in these 7 cities, we reach out and say thank you on this 20-year anniversary of the Amy Fisher Funeral Home. But not to get it twisted, Mr. Franklin started this legacy in 1947. It's been a funeral home on this corner since 1947, here to serve our community to the best of our ability. Let's get into this first video just a little bit. People want to know what goes on with cremation. Look at this animation. The human remains is placed into a crematorium with a temperature that can exceed 1600 degrees. During that process, all of the flesh is burned away, and it leaves you bone fragment. And at the end of the day, the bone fragment is ground up and processed. And what the family gets back are the cremains or the ground up bones of the deceased. Now, in those ground up cremains, any medical implant, hip replacement, pins, needles that doctors are putting through surgeries over time, they are extracted from it. And as I've said before, a pacemaker must be removed before the remains is even placed in the retort. Because the pacemaker contains a lithium battery, anyone knows a lithium battery in fire is going to cause an explosion. So the law requires that all of pacemakers are removed because they do contain a battery, just to let you know. But again, that temperature for cremation is roughly 1600 degrees. And we're going to get into that a little more as I get into this presentation. Give you another video, something a little different. And if you read the caption, that's a praise break before the funeral. Not during, not after, before. I have no comment. I have no emotion behind that. Everybody celebrates life in their own way, and that is perfectly okay. But from the funeral home perspective, let's take a different type of look. This is already an emotional day. The service hasn't even started. The family sometimes, if starting with an emotion, that's what I'm saying, it can lead to a funeral that where emotions kind of get out of control, funeral getting out of control. And I'm sure everyone has seen a funeral get out of control before. Things like this can cause that thinking about the emotional state so that they can go forward. Just something to think about. I would love to have an episode where I could speak with a pastor so that we could sit and talk and see how things are. And brother Dwayne Jones, thank you for coming on the live today. Got to put that up on the stream. Brother Jones and I have been friends through the decades. His family's like family to me. And to be honest, Brother Jones, thank you for all of your support. Know that we're here, have always been here. And yes, educating the community. Another little video real quick. Now, if you're not in the industry, you're probably saying, what in the world is going on? Well, a lot of times the deceased does not pass in the bed or on an elevated surface. So we have to now remove this remains from the ground, from the floors. And the easiest way with showing respect to do this is with an apparatus that we use here called Reeves board. What we'll do is roll the remains, surround it with the Reeves board, which has 4 to 6 handles. Then we can pick the remains up and place them on the stretcher. And it's a whole lot more respectful to do it that way than with sheets. We have done it that way in the past, but Reeves board is a mandatory device. Something else you may have never thought about. When we come to a home or your residence to make a removal, and you have a staircase, that gurney or stretcher that we use is collapsible, but it is hard to maneuver up and down staircases and stairwells. So in that process, what we will do, leave the stretcher at the base of the stairwell, take the Reeves board upstairs, secure the remains to the Reeves board, and then we will come down the stairwell with the remains on the Reeves board to then place onto the stretcher to secure to then exit your home into our removal vehicle. Just to let you know kind of when we come, what to expect, what you may see. But yes, a lot of people don't think about it, but we move the remains ourselves. Most of us don't call a removal company all the time. When we get to your home, we have to be prepared for whatever you have. And if there's stairs, we have to know how to deal with that stairwell to get your loved one out of that home in a dignified, professional manner. Now, let's go over here to this presentation a little bit. As I said, everyone has noticed cremation has really taken off, especially within the past 10 to 20 years. I've been licensed over 30 years. August of 93 is when I received my license. Working in an African American sector, we did cremation rarely. As I said, I started in Petersburg at the William and Bland and Son Funeral Home. Out of 2 locations, we roughly did about 300 to 350 services. From 350, we did not do 10 cremations annually. I moved down here, was employed at Cook Brothers Funeral Chapel, one of the best funeral homes to ever work for. I must give 2 thumbs up. I learned a lot from Mr. Andrew Dawkins. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dawkins, for what you taught me and trained me. But we were doing 500 calls a year, and again, cremation was rare, maybe 2 a month. But over that 25 to 30 year time frame, oh Lord, cremation has taken off. And we have adjusted to it, and we've really adjusted our business model in order to make it work for us as well. Because as you know, cemeteries play a major reason as why cremation is on the rise. So let's get in, take a look at this just a little bit. As we explore the shift towards cremation, there are some environmental benefits and sustainability practices. Definitely. 30 years ago, Vice President Al Gore warned us about global warming. Everybody thought he was on dope, thought he had lost his mind. What's happening now? Global warming. You've never seen storms as bad as they are. You look at the high tides. I'm here in Newport News, Virginia. We cross the James River all the time. I remember when I first came here, as you ride by, you could see the pylons. You don't see them anymore. The sea level has risen. And as we hear on the news down here, the government's talking about what's going on with it. Yes, we need to think about environmental benefits and sustainability. Also, we have evolving cultural attitudes and more acceptance towards cremation. It was almost taboo 30 years ago. Today, it's common occurrence, and that's the way things are. We have personal values and flexible memorial options with cremation, and some of those options we don't have with burial. So it gives you more choices. I'm going to give you an overview of the cremation process today as well, and some key legal and procedural aspects that we must think about when talking about cremation, because it is an irreversible process. The cost effectiveness. In 2008, when our country hit a recession, and as I was told, when America's in a recession, the economically depressed are in a depression. So cremation really started taking up because people could not afford traditional burial with funeral home costs, having a vault in the cemetery. As COVID came about, things increased even more. We had deaths compounded more frequently. People didn't get any more money. And to be honest, FEMA promised some things. I don't know any funeral home that FEMA reimbursed for COVID. If you're one, let me know. Maybe I didn't do my paperwork right, but no family that submitted paperwork during the COVID pandemic received anything from FEMA to help. But we had the funeral. Let's talk now. The numbers I'm showing you here are coming from the National Funeral Directors Association, which is our largest membership association. And they are saying in 2021, the average burial of a funeral is $7,848. Also, the average cremation, which was followed by a funeral, $6,970. Now, in my serving community, we can't charge that much. The community cannot afford those type of prices, being honest with you. So we have some direct cremation options, and with no service whatsoever, just direct cremation. It tends to range from between $1,000 and $3,000, depending upon the funeral home you call. And to be honest, if you call one of the larger conglomerates owned by SCI, you're going to pay that upper range all day, because they're about profitability and giving a return to their shareholders. And that's also why the cemeteries have gotten so expensive, because they have bought most of them. In our area, Peninsula Memorial Park, Park Lawn Memorial Park, and Hampton Memorial Gardens are all owned by SCI. The prices are the same. Yes, you're not going to get in there for under $7,000. It's just not going to happen. It's the America that we're now living in, and that's why a lot of people are going to cremation. That's one factor. As we said, it's an evolving acceptance, an increasing openness among religious people, including Christians, that cremation is all right. I am not a pastor, nor am I a biblical scholar, but I do think that King Saul may have been the first documented cremation in the Bible. King Saul. We have a shift in personal priorities, growing emphasis on personal preference over tradition. The new generation, well, not new generation, the younger generation that we have now, because they're not new. We saw them when they were babies. We've been with them for 40 years as they grew up. They are not following that tradition that grandma followed. They don't see value in doing things the way it was done before. A part of that is because we're more transient now. Very few people die in the the same city or state they were born in. We locate across America in order for jobs, in order to get successes and ahead. So that has a lot to do with it as well. Because once you're interred into the earth, it's a bigger expense to have that body exhumed and moved somewhere. And if you buried a loved one here in Virginia, end up with a job in Texas, how often do you think you're really going to come back to pay homage to your loved one? Something to think about. So yeah, I kind of understand. Times have changed, people have changed, and so have our values. So of course, cremation's on the rise. Let's look at the statistics beneath. In 1960, only 3.6% of the population would choose cremation. In 2020, it has risen to 56.1%. From 3.6 to 56.1. Think about that. Over a 50% increase in only 40 years. And it's projected by 2040, cremation will be 78% of final disposition. Now, knowing that fact, how else is the cemetery going to make money in the future? They're going to price themselves so high that only the elite will be buried and everyone else will be cremated because we just can't afford it. In our area, we do have one cemetery, and I got to shout out, we've done lives with them before, Greenlawn. Greenlawn Memorial Park will still provide you a grave with opening and closing, tent chairs, and lowering device for under $2,000. So if you're adamant about burial and don't want to pay that $7,000 fee, please contact Greenlawn Cemetery. And I am not a paid advertiser for them. I get not a dime. But I just want you to know where the best value is if you cannot afford that $7,000 fee for an SCI cemetery. Let's get back to a few environmental considerations. Cremation certainly minimizes land usage and it avoids non-biodegradable materials like metal caskets being placed in the earth that are going to decompose, and as the metal breaks down, it's going to get into the water table, and now it's going to have to be treated. Think of how many caskets and dead bodies are in the ground, especially back in the day. We didn't have sealer caskets, so as that body decomposed and broke down, the chemicals from the embalming are all going into the earth, and it's affecting us. Cremation does have, of course, fewer embalming chemicals because we don't embalm most bodies that we cremate, only if having a funeral. With a cremation is that body embalmed, so we're not affecting the soil. We're going to talk about some things in the air, though, that are overlooked, and we have a new method about to come in to fix that, too. We have a public perception that cremation is an environmentally conscious choice, and that came from a National Funeral Directors Association survey. So in the mind of everyone, we're tired of compost because the metal does no good in there. None. And we have the new technology like alkaline hydrolysis. Some call it resumation, some call it aquamation, but it's a new form of cremation. The state of Virginia has not fully approved it yet, and it's done with water, which is even more environmentally friendly. So I know it will be coming, just a matter of time. It's already been adopted in some states, Colorado, Oregon, Washington State, California, North Carolina. It's slowly moving across the country, and we'll get more into that as the legislature starts to come up again. Now, what are the steps for performing a cremation? Not much different than a funeral. Paperwork is different. Some of the questions you'll be asked will be different. But you have to contact your local funeral home or licensed crematory. Google websites, anything like that. We even have some cremation societies, and that's all they do. I'm going to give you a heads up. Yeah, I'm that type of person. I'm going to keep it real. A lot of times with direct cremation, you will see an entity advertise a very low price, $800. you're going to have to purchase your alternative container. You're going to have some add-ons, and by the time they add it up, you're paying $3,500. So if asking for a direct cremation, ask are there any other things I'll have to purchase, or is everything included? Always ask that question. There are going to be some necessary documents and permits that's going to have to be taken care of. The first, we're going to have all information for your death certificate. We call that vital stats: name, birthday, mother's name, father's name, complete name with maiden names, because we must have the death certificate in hand with the cause of death before the medical examiner can come view the remains to give us a cremation authorization. Family, you're also going to need to provide us some information as well. We're going to have to complete some cremation authorization to the forms that allow us to have the cremation performed for you. Now, this is when it gets sticky. There are more than one equally responsible for the final disposition. All of them are not in agreement to cremate. One or two say yes, more say no. What does the funeral home do? Well, unless all of you are on the same page and one accord, there's nothing we can do. Everything is on hold. If it stays out there too long and we just can't make things happen, we're going to take it to the court and let the judge decide which way we're going to go. Now, let me make this clear. When the family cannot come together on their own and we have to enter the court system, it's going to be a slow process. And that memorial service or whatever that you wanted to plan on next week is not going to happen next week. I'm going to tell you that now. We're going to have to put your loved one in our refrigeration unit until the judge decides what we're going to do. So what I'm saying is, families, please come together before you come to the funeral. We can't go against the law. You all have to tell us what to do. You all must be in agreement with it and all give signatures. Because if I know there are 5 of you but only 3 of you before me, I legally still can't do it, because I'm aware that there are other siblings or family members of equal kinship, and we have to obey the law. Now, when you have cremation, we cannot just take the remains on a stretcher to the crematorium. It has to be in some type of container, whether you choose a wooden traditional casket or something more affordable, like a cremation container, which is normally made of cardboard or fiberboard. But the remains must be encased in something, and it has to be impermeable to water, meaning it cannot hold water and leak. Because many times when we take the remains over to the crematorium, the remains is not cremated immediately. It may be a day or so. There may be 1 or 2 ahead of that one. So then they have to put the remains into their refrigeration units until the time to perform the cremation. Something to think about. That's why we can't always tell you, yes, we can have the cremains back tomorrow. No, it doesn't work like that. We have to prepare that remains to be cremated, meaning we will always have to do some type of identification photo, and the family normally will sign it if they don't look at the remains directly, because we have to ensure positive identity. The body normally is not embalmed unless there's going to be a funeral with public viewing and cremation following. If your loved one has on jewelry, any type of medical device, pacemaker, we have to remove, of course. We remove them. We do not burn your jewelry up. We don't do that. We give that back to you. Only the remains goes into the retort. Medical devices like IV bags, things like that, we will cut and remove as well. But the only one we physically remove from the remains is the pacemaker. Incision is made either above or beneath it. It's removed. We then dispose of. Then the remains goes to the crematorium. The process there, as I said, the remains is placed in a chamber with a temperature between 1600 and 2000 degrees. Tend to preheat at about 600, 700. Depending upon the size of the remains, the process can take between 1.5 to 3.5 hours. When you get up to that 500 pound and larger, it's going to be three hours or more. It takes time, and this process is going to reduce the remains to basically bone fragments. People call them ashes. No, they're not ashes. They're cremains. Finely ground bone fragments. Any medical object that is found, like surgical pins, sometimes your dental fillings, if were made of that old school metal. And I'm gonna say something about that. The fillings in the day contained a lot of mercury, and when cremated, that mercury is then released into the atmosphere, and that has depleted the ozone layer through the generations. So because of so much mercury in our mouths that we weren't even aware of when the dentist did the work, what was in the filling, alkaline hydrolysis is starting to be a method that more people are seeing acceptable, because not only are we messing up the earth and the groundwater, even the ozone, with the way we're disposing of the remains through cremation. As the remains cool off, they're then processed and ground down to almost sand-like consistency with a few larger bone fragments in there. And that's what is transferred into the temporary container or the urn that we then give back to the family. Now, when the family receives the urn, what do they do with them? Well, depends upon your family preference. Some will keep them in the home, almost like a shrine, make it a sacred place. Some will scatter them, the cremains in a meaningful location. Some will even bury them with a loved one, or purchase a separate grave space, or placed into a niche or columbarium, which is a smaller receptacle just like a mausoleum, but it's made for urns. When having cremation, you can still arrange a memorial service, and it could take place before the cremation is done or after. And let me make one more clarification terminology. When you hear the funeral, it is implied a service where the body is present, not necessarily viewed, but the physical remains of that person is there. A memorial service normally means the remains is not there, not the physical presence. So sometimes a family will have a memorial service before the cremation is done, and we can place their urn there that they've purchased to give a focal point, since we're not using the casket. We can also have options of the venue. A memorial service can be held anywhere: funeral home, your church, your home, your backyard, at the club, any place that was significant with that person. It's okay to have a memorial service, because you're just reflecting on their life and how they lived. The services can be customized in many different ways, because again, you don't have that big casket and the human remains there, so you can do a lot of things. Now, how does cremation change from traditional funeral planning? Number one, you do not have to have any type of burial arrangements if you don't want to. As I said, the cremains can be taken to your home, they can be scattered, but you don't have to take on the financial expense of burying. There are fewer requirements on the physical space, so if you would like to bury, you don't have to buy a full grave or a casket. You can buy a space even much smaller. Other than the traditional service, as I said, we can have a memorial service that can be held with or without the remains, if that's what you like. We can have no ceremony at all, just a cremation, and we give the cremains back to you. Or we can go as far as having a full funeral in a church with 4 or 5 limousines, and at the end, versus all of us taking a procession to the cemetery, you can go to your repast, and the remains will then go to the crematory. Just letting you know, it's more flexible. And because of this, the timing can be even more flexible. It doesn't have to be to the day or to the time, because we know the remains, once we've decided upon cremation, it may not be able to happen the next day, but you can still have a ceremony. it gives you a more thought process, a little time, a few more options as well. Yeah, here's a common myth. Cremation is always cheaper than burial. Not necessarily. I have had some services, funeral followed by cremation. They were good days. I mean, good days. You can't have a service if you have cremation. Again, that is not true. You can have memorial service. You can even have a complete funeral if that's what you would like. We just need to know what you want so we can schedule it and talk you and walk through the logistics of making it happen. We have the religious and legal considerations, and as I've said, most religions now do accept cremation as a form of disposition that follows their practice of belief. So, if you're worried about that, speak to your pastor, your rabbi, whomever your spiritual leader is, but I'm sure they will not have an issue if cremation is your choice. And the legal requirements are so minimal. All you have to do is wish it, and we can do the proper paperwork to make it happen. I mean, there's nothing that will hinder it if those are your wishes. So don't think there's anything about the law that'll stop a cremation from happening. It's not. Unless we cannot get all next of kin and relatives to agree, then we're going to have to wait until the court steps in and tells us what to do because the family is not on one accord. Some emotional and personal considerations. Personal preference plays a major role in choosing cremation. That's just keeping it real. Personal preference. The funeral director, we're here to. I'm not trying to push you or steer you in either direction because that's one thing against the law, capering and steering. We're here to facilitate, answer your questions, to make you feel assured that you made the right decision in what you're choosing, but not to judge and say, yo, you need to have this because grandma was the mother of the church. No, no. Grandma may have said in her quiet moment with you, baby, I don't want all that when I die. Just a simple cremation and a memorial service. So don't think the funeral home is judging. We're here to give you what you want. A few things you can do. Tailor the service to your deceased. Focus on their personality, hobbies, values. We can incorporate their favorite music, readings, poems, anything to reflect their spirit. Only thing we're going to do is encourage you to allow the attendees to share stories and memories because that's going to foster a connection. You can create video tributes and slideshows. Here at Emmy Fisher Funeral Home, we do that for you at no cost. Every family we serve, if you have photos of your loved one, you're going to get a video tribute slideshow if that's what you want. And we're going to give you a physical DVD of it as well. So in certain moments and times you get home, put it in. Reflect on your loved one, the good times that you had. We can go as far as thematic decorations and arrangements. I mean, we have no problem if your loved one was a musician. Bring some instruments, put it around. We'll put it in their hand and display if you'd like to, if you've chosen funeral with cremation. Done that a couple of times, especially with guitars. I mean, there's so many ways we can customize this service for you that it'll be just as meaningful as a traditional funeral going to the cemetery. It may even be more meaningful because it can be more intimate. For instance, for gardening enthusiasts, use flowers from their own garden. Provide guests with the seeds to plant in their own homes. Think about that, man. Tell you, I'm old school. Marigolds. If you know what those little flowers are, they dry out. And when they dry out, that becomes a seed. So if mama got marigolds out there, why not bring some arrangements? Go ahead and cut some of the tops off, dry them up. And those seeds you can then pass out, and they can then plant them in their yards as remembrance of your mother. Just something to think about. Something different you can do. We got meaningful locations that you can scout with proper authority. You can choose anywhere. Your favorite park, beach, mountain trail. You know your loved one, but these are places that where you can scatter their cremains and know that this is where they'd like to be. We can incorporate them into some eco-friendly practices as well. We have vessels that can be purchased and the cremains placed in, and a tree will grow from it. They can be scattered at sea. All of that's eco-friendly. It's not hurting the earth. We can organize gatherings that include the scattering. That way we're bringing more people around with us. Have a storytelling session or something like that. It's like your own way of honoring that last time before you scatter those remains. And these type of ceremonies offer bring a stronger connection to the family because we're sharing this wish. Even though the body isn't here, it's not a traditional funeral. Maybe it was, but it's almost like at the cemetery when we do the committal, another ceremony, something ceremonially that your family can do to bring closure and help you through that grief process. We got a lot of personalized options we can use with cremains as well. We know about the big urn, but we have jewelry, lockets, rings, pendants, what portions of the ashes can be placed in. We have glass sculptures that we can place the cremains in. Keepsakes provide a unique way to honor your deceased because you can have a piece of them with you on you at all times. Something to think about if that's the way you'd like it. Like a family member could wear a necklace with the ashes and know that cousins, uncles, you may have 5 or 6 of you all, knowing that grandma is here with us every day, even though not physically, a piece of her, of the afterlife is here. Again, why the rise of cremation? Number one, I would say cost effectiveness. Yeah, people just cannot afford the expense of a complete funeral with burial like they did 45 years ago. We have changing cultural and religious attitudes. We're not as strict in like we were 50 years ago. It must be like this A, B, C, D, or you're wrong. No, it's a new world we're living in. And a lot, really, the environmental considerations. We can't keep mistreating the earth and think it's going to keep taking care of us. We're seeing earthquakes happen in places that never happened. I mean, we've heard earthquakes in Virginia as a child, unheard of. That was a West Coast thing. We've had tornadoes here in Virginia. I witnessed with my eyes. As a child, unheard of. Never a tornado in this part of the country. So something has happened. We've changed the weather patterns. Cremation, alkaline hydrolysis may be a form of disposition that will help us be more sustainable. One day we'll talk about human composting and terramation as well. Something else state of Virginia is thinking about, a little bit different, kind of complex, but we'll talk about that on another episode. Now, at the end, we're at the end. If you're thinking about cremation, just a few steps in the process. We have to obtain documentation and permits and file a death certificate. We're going to have to select some type of container in which to do the cremation in. The body's going to be refrigerated or either embalmed. Any type of jewelry they have, we're going to remove it. The cremation is going to take place 1600 to 2000 degrees for an hour and a half to 3 hours or so. Metal will then be separated from the cremains. And the cremains will be cooled and processed into a fine consistency and placed into your urn. From there, we return the urn back to the family. That's the cremation process. Now, that's for that. Again, thank you for joining in. Thank you for being a part of this project. And as I said, this is episode 11. Yeah, 11 times you have taken the time to sit here, listen to me, ask questions, and I'm grateful and I'm thankful. Let's grow this to even bigger. This is Mark Fisher, Emmy Fisher Funeral Home here in Newport News, Virginia, saying good day, have a great weekend, be safe, and I hope everybody's prepared for Thanksgiving next week. Get with your family, thank God for all the blessings that you have, even if it feels like you're going through the worst hell ever. Thank God, because you could be at the Undertaker's house in the casket. You're here. If you're here living and breathing,